Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Higher Pursuit live stream. We're so glad that you are with us today. I am really excited because today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Lauren Black, and Lauren and I met through, how did we meet? I think we met through like a podcast guest Facebook group or something like that. And
yeah.
Do you think that's, I think
and you connected as one of our prayer leaders for my prayer challenge last year. And I think that was our first interaction.
Yeah, exactly. And then I had Lauren on my podcast last year. So I'm just going to give you a little bit about Lauren. And Lauren is the world's biggest overthinker turned decision coach, all by the grace of God. After years of struggling with indecision and failing to find an effective decision-making system, Lauren drew on her experience as a brand strategist to craft her decision-making framework, which is called the SAIL, S-A-I-L method. Her process is rooted in integrating your personality, your preferences, your passions, your priorities, and it's all wrapped in prayer, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Lauren's framework is the cornerstone of her one-on-one decision coaching, her strategic decision guidelines, and her podcast, The Anchored Decision Show. Lauren's mission is clear: empowering Christian women to make confident decisions, take decisive action, and live on purpose. And you know what? The reason that Lauren and her message and everything she stands for fits in so well with the Higher Pursuit podcast is because this podcast, this live stream, is a space where we refuse to settle for surface level faith, right? Instead, we are running after the fullness of who God is. And the reason we're doing this as a live stream is so that we can grow together in understanding, in experiencing his presence, and in discovering the abundant life, that Zoe life, that God kind of life that is only found in Jesus Christ. So I asked Lauren to join us tonight to tell us about the upcoming New Year's prayer challenge that is starting on the 1st of January. And like Lauren said, I discovered it last year because I followed her and then I was blessed to be one of the prayer leaders. I kind of got in because somebody had to dip out. So I was so excited when Lauren was like, hey, I found out about it last minute and I jumped in and said, I'd love to be a prayer leader. And she said, oh, dang, all the slots are full. But then somebody couldn't make it. So I got to be a part of it. And so we'll talk more about that in a bit. So I was excited when Lauren asked me again to be a prayer leader. And before I tell you about the prayer topics that I chose, I want to ask Lauren to share with us what the prayer challenge is, how it started, and what people can expect when they join it, because it really is phenomenal. So Lauren, for those who might not know you yet, tell us a little about who you are and how and what the prayer challenge is all about.
Yeah. So I've been a Christian my whole life, and that's been such an awesome blessing, but definitely go through periods where the closer I am with God, the more I hear from him, and the more I'm just connected to the Spirit and feel like I'm led by God. And so last year I was in one of those times that I had been really intentional with my prayer life and had been doing a lot of prayer journaling, feeling really connected to God. And there was a day that I have another business doing graphic design, and I was just working on client design work. And this is like a week before Christmas. So very, very close to the new year. And all of a sudden, I just feel God lay it on my spirit that you need to help people, lead people in prayer for the new year. And I just got out a sticky, wrote it down, didn't know what that would look like and how I would approach it. But I was like, I know without a doubt that came from God because I had been so connected to him in prayer at that time. I was like, there's no doubt in my mind that this was from the Lord. I'm in the middle of designing. I've got music playing. That thought would not have come to my head on my own. And I knew it was the voice of the Lord. So I jumped on it and I said, okay, God, if this is really from you, then, which I know it is, you will make it happen, even though it was so close to the new year. So I put messages out in some of the podcasting groups I was in. I messaged all of my old podcast guests that I had that I knew were Christians, and just reached out to my network and said, hey, who can help make this happen? I want to have a prayer leader for each day of the month. And some people selected up to 3 topics. So, that covered multiple days, but I had different topics planned so that we could cover our lives and even things like our government and, the economy just in general, and like our pastors and spiritual leaders in prayer for the new year. And I just help people connect to God deeper. And January is the time to do that, when people are setting their goals for the year, changing their habits, making resolutions. I said, now is the time to catch people when they want to make those changes and those habits. And let's establish a habit of prayer from the start of the year.
Yes. That is so incredible. And you know what? I find that for me personally, when the new year starts coming around, like a lot of people, I get very retrospective. What goals did I set last year that I didn't achieve? And of course, there's tons, and that can be really discouraging. And then I look forward to the new year, and I think, well, is it even worth setting goals? Like, is it even worth it? Because do I have what it takes to fulfill these? I've set so many goals in my so many years on this planet. And gosh, is it even worthwhile going through the hashtag goals type thing? And what I love about starting that year in prayer is that instead of pursuing promise of future performance, you're pursuing the presence of the Lord, and you're initiating, baptizing the year, so to speak, in intentional prayer and giving the Lord the year before it has a chance to kind of go its own way. So that's what I enjoyed about it. So as we're stepping into this year, what has the Lord been speaking to you personally in this season of your life and ministry?
Yeah. Well, I think this is cool that you bring this up, because for those who are listening, Cecily and I were just on a call last week just to catch up. And I was sharing some of this, that God has been laying it on my heart to kind of be still and watch what he can do. And just like Moses and the Israelites, when they left Egypt and they're facing the Red Sea, they don't know yet what God's about to do. They're ready to turn back to Egypt, to go back to their old ways, the slavery, the horrible lifestyle that they lived, because what's in front of them was unknown and it looked worse than what their past had for them. And they didn't trust God. And God said, just be still and wait for me to move. And that's when he parted the Red Sea and made the way and provided the miracle. And so I kind of been feeling God lay that on my heart. Like, you need to trust me with your business, with Anchored Decisions, and what he can do for it. That when I want to turn back to my old ways of either workaholism or doing the design work more than Anchored Decisions, then God's like, just wait and see what I can do if you hand this over to me.
Yes. Wow. It is so tempting. There's something about us as human beings where when things don't seem to be working the way we planned it or going as quickly as we thought, or those, like we mentioned, you and I earlier, the KPIs just don't seem to be adding up. For those of you who don't know what KPIs are, it's key performance indicators. And in something like ministry or starting a business, sometimes you don't exactly know what those KPIs should actually be. Yet we seem to we compare ourselves to some unrealistic standard that we can't live up to. And so we live in this tension, that quiet feeling of not being enough that can drive us into anxiety and striving and the need to prove ourselves. So, Lauren, how has the Lord been inviting you to live differently now? You talked about stillness. What does that look like in the face of those old lies of not enough, got to prove yourself, got to have success, got to bring in the bucks or whatever those things are. Hi, everybody. While I hate to interrupt a good discussion, I do want to tell you about my book, Repurpose Your Pain, Moving from Pain to Purpose and from Instability to Firm Faith. In the book, I share 10 pain points that are common to most people, and I share my personal stories, my experiences with those pain points, and how I repurposed that pain. Then we dive into what the Word of God has to say about how we repurpose that pain. You need to know that this book is really 2 books in one, because it includes workbook activations to help you apply the truth that you've learned to your life. So grab your copy today on Amazon, Christian book distributors, or any place books are sold.
Yeah, I think it looks like a few things. One is rest. That has been another thing that over and over throughout my life, God has laid on my, in front of me and said, take this gift of mine. It is something that the Sabbath was a requirement, not just a suggestion. And I struggle with the Sabbath. And it's funny, even my son, who's 7, he goes, Mom, Sundays are supposed to be the day of rest and no work. He goes, why do I have soccer on Sundays? I have to work.
Come on.
And I was like, whoa, yeah, even my 7-year-old understands this. And I might take off work from my business on Sundays, but that's the day where I'm like, let's see how much I can get done around the house to catch up on house projects and meal planning and getting ahead with tasks around the house for the week. And I have a real hard time resting because of, I think, as we talked about, those KPIs and that like feeling the need to perform and to be doing that. To me, it feels lazy. It feels unproductive to rest when God's like, no, rest is productive in itself.
Yes.
So I think, overall, like the rest and to just, as he said, to be still. Like I have a hard time being still and just accepting the rest, but that's when I can connect deeper with my kids. I can connect deeper with God in my quiet time. I can rejuvenate and refresh so that I can continue serving.
Oh, so good. So good. So just so people know, what could be possibly keeping you so busy on a Sunday? Tell us about your family, husband, kids, pets. Like what have you got going on at that house?
Yeah. So I have a husband who often works crazy schedules. Right now, he's been on kind of a little bit more normal of day shift, which has been awesome. Every once in a while, today he had to get up at 3 a.m. and he worked and he wasn't home till 6:30. So he can work some long shifts, sometimes has to do night shift. And then I have 2 boys, ages 7 and 4. So very high energy, active, love to roll around in the dirt in the backyard and come trekking that through the house. So they keep me on my toes. And right now we've also been going through home renovations that we started over a year ago. And my husband's been doing so much of the work himself. But yet, because we're so busy and he's got, we've got church and soccer on Sundays and family activities on Fridays and sometimes Saturdays. And he's like, when do I even have time to work on the house? This Christmas, he finally has some time off and we've decided to go visit his family in Georgia. And he was a little hesitant at first because he's like, this is my one time. I have a week off. I can get stuff done around the house that's been sitting there waiting to be done. But one of our kind of family values is that family's important. And we don't know how many more years we'll have with his grandma or some of his other family members. And so we're like, no, this is more important than the house projects. So that's what's been going on in our house.
Wow. So our house over here is kind of quiet. It's just John and me. Everybody else is flown and grown. But what I've found is that starting a ministry, starting a podcast and a live stream and having written a book that people need to know about and doing the social media, my world that used to be very nicely compartmentalized where I had my time with the Lord in the morning, then I worked out, then I got ready and I went into the office. I was in at 8:30 and I left at 5. I came home, I made dinner. I was able to sort of shut the door on certain compartments of my life so that when I was home, I felt like I actually sort of landed here at home. And when I was at work, I was at work. When I was with the Lord, I was, my quiet time, I was there. But because my whole life pretty much is in one space, kind of my office. This is where I meet with the Lord. This is where I have my tabernacle time. It's also where I'm doing my podcasting. It's also where I'm doing my Bible study and my mentoring, coaching meetings. All of that is kind of from this one space and in my home, that the lines have gotten blurred. And like you, I have a massive problem settling down and resting. My husband will put on a movie and he'll say, hey, do you want to watch a movie? Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I'm not going to sit on that actual couch and watch the movie, of course. I mean, you know that I'm going to probably clean out the refrigerator and get it ready for Christmas food. And you know that I'm probably going to do some meal planning, and I'm probably going to bring my laptop down and try to do some social media posts. I mean, I'm not going to actually sit and watch a movie. I mean, gosh, isn't that like reckless laziness? And yet I look over at him and I'm like, how can you do that? Like, how can you just like pull the plug and just be there? So I was having a conversation with some people the other day, and this is what came out of my mouth. I said, I feel like a stone. This is how I felt just recently. I feel like a stone skipping across the top of the water. And instead of really landing with weight in the moment, I'm just skipping across the top. And I know I'm skipping across the top because I'm not remembering things. I'm forgetting things. I'm forgetting conversations. It was because I wasn't completely present when it was happening. I'm trying to juggle too many things. So put in the chat if any of you have ever tried to juggle too many things before, because I know Lauren and I are not the only ones who have felt this way. We're not the only ones who have ever felt like it's hard to rest, hard to settle down, and that we feel driven to accomplish. That is, I think it's the way COVID was a virus that infected the entire planet, whether you are young or old, rich or poor, black or white, Jew or Gentile. I feel like this struggle to achieve, to be somebody, to prove ourselves, that it's viral. What do you think, Lauren?
I think it is. And I think you see that on social media, and even as a business owner, you follow these experienced business owners who tell you, oh, I was getting 4 hours of sleep every night to grow my business, and there's no time for rest, and you're lazy, and you're never going to make it if you stop and you rest or you do things your way. Like, you have to follow this push and this hustle culture. And you know, but especially I think too, if we throw a wrench into this conversation of, you know, feminism and things, and people are like, oh, women should be able to hold their own. And, you know, I was just reading a article today on how they were bashing how like stay-at-home moms have no security, that you should always have at least some sort of side income so that if something happened, you know, have that security to depend on yourself. And so we get pushed in this culture that you have to be self-reliant, you have to be successful, you have to work at it. And so that can get to our heads and step aside what God's plan is and what God has said is good and fruitful, which is rest and, you know, doing things God's way, instead of trying to pursue what we see people, you know, pushing us to do.
Yes, absolutely. This world system has completely flipped God's pattern for success, for successful living, for the Zoe kind of life. It's flipped it on its head. Absolutely. I'm just looking in the chat where Teresa says, I always juggle too much. Stephanie is like, yeah, me. I've been there. I feel that. Yeah, I mean, this is the way we can so often feel. And that mantra, I was telling Lauren before we went live that I have been praying for so many young women lately, and I look in their eyes and I say, wow, there it is again. And I call out that lie of not enough, and the tears start to flow. And I said, you know, I believe that the Lord is showing me that you feel like you are not enough, that you are deficient, you are defective, that everybody else can succeed. Everybody else is worthy, but you're constantly trying to strive to prove yourself. You're driving yourself because you feel like you have to prove even the worth of your life. And so back to this prayer challenge, Lauren, what do you believe is so significant about beginning our year with prayer and consecration instead of maybe the pressure and the goal setting?
Yeah. So I love how you phrased it before of saying you're baptizing it and you're baptizing your year. And that I love that. It's this fresh start. But what I think is important about the prayer challenge versus goal setting is a goal usually gives you a destination, an endpoint that you have to reach. And so you start off saying, okay, I'm going to pray every single day of the year and have this, dedicated quiet time. And so you start checking off the boxes of, when you actually do it. But then when you slip up and you are sick for a day and you let it slide, then it starts becoming this thing that you didn't obtain anymore. And so you feel disappointed in yourself. You feel like you've broken it. And so now you're coming at it almost legalistically as like this checkmark thing you have to do rather than taking the posture of, I want a lifestyle change of something that it's a desire. And so I'm going to work my life around this, not as a check off my to do, but change the habit and the posture to one of reverence, to one of connection. And once you experience it, it's that taste and see that the Lord is good.
Yes.
So that's why I made it the whole month of January. 31 days is the challenge so that it encourages you to experience that. And then you'll want to keep going out of the heart posture and not just out of this is a to-do list thing that I have to check off.
Yes. I mentioned in a prior live stream that I had recently heard this fact about neuroscience, that motivation follows activity, not the other way around. So many of us are waiting for the motivation to pray, but that's not going to necessarily happen. Maybe out of God's grace and mercy, we might sometimes feel motivation for some godly action first. But for the most part, when you're talking the day in, the day out, the endurance, the lifestyle of godly habits, motivation follows the action, the decision to say, I'm going to do this because I see it in God's word, because God tells us to pray and he tells us to come into his presence. This is the whole reason that Jesus came to earth. We're about to celebrate Christmas. We're about to celebrate the fact that the word became flesh and dwelt among us as Emmanuel, God with us. So the whole reason he did that is to pay the price for our sin so that we could be born again, so that now we could be filled with his spirit and finally be his children again, finally be restored to that place where we're not under the enemy's thumb, where now we are back in that position of authority and dominion. And as his children, we can have that intimate fellowship with him anytime, anywhere. But I think a lot of us, myself included, I wait for those moments, the goosebumps, the warm, fuzzy feeling. I'm hoping that when my alarm goes off at 4:30, I'm just going to sort of like pop up out of bed. Like, oh, this is no big deal. But no, it's always a big deal. It's never like super duper easy. But God has given a promise and has wired our brains to respond that way. So I love how Dawn said prioritizing getting things done versus all the other stuff that distracts us from these goals. That is so true. And she's like, I feel overwhelmed with the constant chaos and trying to keep normalcy within my family. Girlfriend, come on. I 100% hear you. And tell you what, I don't know what it is about the holidays. Sometimes things can get even kind of crazier. But about the prayer challenge, how has leading this challenge shaped you personally, Lauren? What has it done in you? The fact that you are providing other women with this opportunity, I guess it's men and women really, but other Christians, the opportunity to start their year this way.
Yeah, so I think it's been awesome for me inviting other people into the prayer challenge, because then as I'm praying, and sometimes I get stuck in my own rhythms, I'm starting to now follow the prayers of these other leaders. And you have
Yeah.
people from all different perspectives and passions and angles that I might not have thought of myself, and I might not have thought to pray that way. And so it's affected me personally, that I get to follow along like everybody else, of hearing these prayers from different lenses, and then just being able to lead it. I know for me, anytime that I have to lead a Bible study or lead a small group, give a talk on something, when I actually have to dive into that topic myself in order to teach it, I always end up learning as much or more than the audience.
Yes.
So yes, I love that God uses me and my platform for myself as well, to draw me closer to him. And even last year, I was riding such a spiritual high at the end of the prayer challenge that kept going. The momentum kept going. And there were times too that it was around March, around spring break time, that I heard from God, like something I went to pray over something, because I was like, okay, there's this decision I need to make that's kind of a last minute decision, and I need to pray over this. And God instantly spoke to me and said, no, you don't. You know the answer, because I was already connected with him. I had already set my priorities and my values, and I knew where this thing I was deciding on aligned with those values. And God was just saying, you've already covered this.
Oh,
and
so good.
The steps to take.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. Before we talk about the people who are going to be the prayer leaders, I just want to sort of piggyback off of what you just said. There's a really kind of a serious thing that's happening in our family right now. And part of me says, I should be praying more. I should be praying more about this. I should be more concerned. Why am I not worried? And shouldn't I be like screaming this out and declaring and losing my voice over, just screaming at the enemy or whatever? And like what you just said, the Lord said, why? You've already settled it with me. We've already covered this ground. You already know that this is a done deal. You can thank me, continually thank me. Thank me in all situations, even when it looks like things are going backwards in the situation. Absolutely. Give me praise. Give me gratitude that I have spoken the word, and you and your family are going to the other side. Absolutely. But you don't have to scream this out. You don't have to, get all worked up emotionally, because you've already settled it. And it was just so great to know, like, oh, that's okay. Yes, it's okay that when you know that you and God have already done business in this, you have already turned the key, that door has already been unlocked, the answer has already been given, it's already a yes, but now it's just that tension of the waiting. You don't have to worry. It's not the place to get worked up, if that makes sense.
Right.
So
yeah.
I love how you kind of just said that same thing.